Hello, my name is Giles Rutson. I'm a youth leader in the organization GLOBALx, and today I'm interviewing Lou Del Bianco. He's a storyteller, a performer, and an educator who teaches children, values, history, and stories, that they can relate to and connect to, and it's this incredibly fascinating program that he has. And his most recent program topic has been his grandfather, whose name is Luigi Del Bianco, who is an Italian immigrant who's the chief carver on Mount Rushmore, and hasn't really been given credit for all the unique and important roles that he had in creating this this incredible monument. One of the 10 man-made wonders of the world. So, introducing Lou Del Bianco.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Thanks for being on the show, I guess.
I feel like I'm on a show.
Yeah.
I feel showish.
Fair enough. So Lou, tell me what storytelling means to you. Like, define it in your own words.
Well, I would say that, first of all, everybody has a story. And I think we would judge each other a lot less if we knew each other's stories. And one of the reasons that I love telling stories is because they perform so many different functions, particularly with my work with young people. You can entertain someone with a story, you can move them, and you can teach them. Mm-hmm. And I mean, storytelling has been going on since the ancient peoples. I mean, people got their news by listening to stories, people got their religion from listening to stories. Mm-hmm. And people got away from their daily problems by listening to stories. And when I perform for kids in particular, if I have a lesson that I want to impart, they don't feel like they're being taught. They don't feel like they're being lectured to. Mm-hmm. They're experiencing the story, they're becoming involved with the characters and the plot and the setting, and I think it gives all of us, not just children and adults, an ability to kind of get out of ourselves and to go into a different place. So basically, I love storytelling because it is a way to communicate by teaching, by entertaining, and by moving one's emotions.
Wow. Yeah. It's a very good definition. Wow.
I think I'll try to remember that.
Yeah. Definitely. So, talk about your stories. Where do a lot of your stories come from?
Well, when I first started trying to find my style of storytelling, my wife Camille gave me this book, and they were stories from Japan. And I took this book and I learned the stories, and I found that by acting them out, I was involving the kids more, and they liked that. And that just became my style. And then I started looking for stories from the other countries. So by about 5 years into my career, I had developed about 100 stories from all over the world. So I developed this whole multicultural repertoire. Wow. So at the beginning of my career, I really enjoyed exposing children to stories from different cultures, but also letting them know that even though stories come from around the world, mythology is connected to each other. So I would share a story like Vasilisa the Wise from Russia, which is, I might have told you about.
Yeah, you might have actually at some point. Yeah, I definitely remember.
Where, this Russian fairy tale influenced Cinderella, Snow White, Jack and the Beanstalk, because these stories traveled, and as they got told, they went into other cultures. So those were the seeds of my multicultural storytelling. Yeah. And so I have a show called Around the World where the kids come up and they act out these stories, and they see how stories from different cultures can bring everybody together.
Yeah. So you incorporate the kids in the storytelling, so it sticks with them.
Absolutely.
It just kind of processes a lot better.
Yeah, and the lessons are universal. So if I tell the story of the boy who cried wolf,
that's a lesson.
It is a total lesson.
That's a lesson.
But they get lost in the story as well. And they get lost in this character of this boy who's being bad.
That's an allegory for you.
Yeah. And so later on after that, I was running an after-school program, and this little boy we used to sit down and talk about things that scared us, because I thought it was good for the kids to talk about their fears. And this one boy said, my dad took me to a cliff, and he made me believe he was going to push me off. He said it scared the crud out of me. Yeah, no, this is true.
That's insane.
And the kid's like reliving it. And I said, you know, I was afraid of my dad too when I was a kid. And I all of a sudden just started sharing this memory of how I had to bring milk to my father. And I was terrified because I thought I might drop it. If I dropped it, he'd kill me, you know. And so I told the story. The kids were like, you know, like this. So the next day they were like, tell us the milk story, tell us the milk story.
Yeah.
And I thought, wait a minute, I think I'm onto something here. So for the next 10 years, I just started telling stories when I was a kid. And so in the same way that I shared the mythology of the Greeks and the Romans and the mythology of fairy tales from Germany, I started sharing my own mythology, you know, and that opened the floodgates. So I had a career at telling multicultural stories from my own childhood, and now I'm doing what's called living history. And we all know the word story is in history, where I play Abraham Lincoln and I tell his story.
Wow.
And now I'm telling my grandfather's story. So it kind of leads back to that. Hope that wasn't an awkward segue.
No, no, not at all. You know, and I really want to touch up on your grandfather and a couple of questions, but I just have a couple more.
Sure.
And one of those questions is, Lou, what did you eat for breakfast this morning?
Can I take a drink? Oh, that's an interesting question.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Are we having
That's
water now?
that's perfect. Yes. Well, I have to drink because I'm kind of blown away with that question.
Yeah.
I had two sunny side eggs on whole grain toast.
Whole grain.
No butter.
No butter.
Very important. No
Healthy.
butter because of cholesterol. Turkey sausage, not regular sausage because once again I have to watch my cholesterol. I watch the numbers. A banana cut up because I like to eat my banana with a fork, sectioned.
All right.
Okay. I'm uncomfortable otherwise. And the banana has to come first. It has to be on a plate. Okay.
All right.
So
on a plate. This is like a methodical like thing.
every Sunday morning with Mimi at the Roberts Deli.
So this makes me think that you're a very organized kind of guy. You're a guy with a plan, right?
I'm a guy with a plan.
You're a guy with a plan.
NOCD.
NOCD. All right. Yeah.
That was my breakfast every Sunday.
Every Sunday. That's very appropriate. And now I got to take you back to the serious route of things.
Okay.
So, what's your what motivates you to be a storyteller? I understand you work with kids a lot. What's like the most satisfying part of your career?
I think it's without a doubt when it's about feedback. It's not only just feedback during the show when the kids are really responding to what I'm having to say. It's what happens afterwards if I get letters from the kids or if I get letters from the teachers and tell them that what I did got under their skin. I mean, we've all seen movies, we've all seen plays.
In the positive way, getting understood. It really affects them.
Yeah, exactly. And if I could just give you some examples. I have a song on a CD called When I Was a Kid about never getting a hit in baseball. And, I had a mother call me up like weeks later saying, you have to listen to this. And she puts the phone out on the backyard and I can hear this little boy going, give me a hit, one little smack, singing the lyrics of my song, practicing because he wanted to get a hit, just like I did because he was family as well. So the fact that he heard the song, it got under his skin, it inspired him to persevere like I did. This might not sound like earth-shattering in an adult's life, but if you go back to the time when you were a kid and what was huge, yeah,
wow,
yeah, so
that's actually really cool.
And I'm sure you could think of those moments where,
definitely,
where some adults might go, oh, come on, we all went through that. Well, think about it. It's like when you go back to your old elementary school and you can't believe how small the hallway is.
Yeah.
When you were in school, it was like.
Yeah.
It was like St. It was like the Basilica. It was like huge. Everything's so much bigger when you're a kid. So I have lots of examples where I'm really moved and touched by people who take my story and own it. And then I've had very really upsetting but yet also touching moments where a parent might call me up and say, your CDs helped get my kid through chemotherapy. A kid who's sitting in a chair getting chemicals into their body so they could live. and that my stories and CDs helped in that way.
Wow.
So, so I would say it's the feedback. It's that what I do matters. And if you do something that matters in somebody else's life, to me it's all worth it.
Yeah. And so I guess you really just answered what my next question was going to be, is, why you perform for children. From what I can understand, it's really, it's for their benefit entirely. It not only helps them learn, right, but this is, motivating to them, it sounds like. And it's just like one of those things, that's really positive, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Because all the messages that you convey are positive for the most part.
Yes.
And they're educational. Like these kids, they're learning about, history, and they're also getting this huge cultural aspect from stories from around the world. So they're not having a small, minded mentality on the stories. They have a really broad perspective on the world because of what you're telling them.
Absolutely, very well said, Giles. It's absolutely right. And I think that the thing I love about storytelling is that it's involving. It involves the person. And Mimi.
Yeah.
I have
My grandma.
Your grandmother.
Yeah.
And my wife shared this quote from Ben Franklin. It typifies everything that I do. Ben Franklin wrote, "Tell me something, I'll remember. Teach me something, I'll learn." Oh God, what's the last part? Oh, this is so embarrassing. Oh man.
It's fine.
I usually have a big salad for lunch. It's my lame attempt to get out of the situation.
I think, I understand, whoever's watching this will definitely understand, though.
Yeah, you know what it is?
The start to that.
Yeah, I'm gonna, but one more time, this could be edited.
All right,
As they say. So tell me something I'll remember. Teach me something I'll learn. Involve me, I will really learn. Okay, it's something
really
along those lines. In other words,
Yeah.
my storytelling, if you involve your student or anyone, it's something they'll never forget. You just think of a project that you worked on.
All right.
Right, so.
Yeah. And now I'd really like to talk about your grandfather, because as was mentioned before, he was a sculptor, and he was the chief carver on Mount Rushmore. Like the guy was an artist in every sense of the word. His work is actually all around us right now. This sculpture here, this portrait. I don't know if it's visible, but it's an incredibly vivid.
Let me see if we can see it, Giles, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, they can see it. Absolutely.
This incredibly vivid, self-portrait of himself. This guy really brought everything that he did to life, and I kind of want you to. Can you tell me a little bit, like kind of a background on who Luigi was, his life, like?
Sure. He was born in Italy in 1892, and in northern Italy. And when he was around 11 years old, he carved a little dog out of wood. And his father said, "You've got talent." So his father did what people did with many of their children 100, 200 years ago. They would send them off to apprentice for a master. So he put my grandfather on a train at 11 years old. Just put him on a train, with nobody going with him, and he studied with a carver for 2 years, and then when he got enough experience from that, he went and studied in Venice. So after 5 years, he really became a classically trained stone carver, as you can see there. And then emigrated to America when he was 17 to Vermont, and then went back when World War I came about. He was still very loyal to Italy, so he went and fought with the Italian army, and he was a master sergeant with the Italian army.
Wow.
And then, through some different twists and turns in his life, met Gutzon Borglum. And Borglum had my grandfather work under him for 12 years, and then hired my grandfather, because of his talent, to be the chief carver on Mount Rushmore in 1933.
Wow.
And my grandfather was chief carver there until the mountain's completion until 1940.
What's like the significance to you of like an Italian immigrant working on like this huge monument to the United States of America. Like,
Yeah.
what does that like mean? Like, how does that?
Well, I think that, you know, our country is a beacon for immigrants. I mean, you know, the Statue of Liberty talks about give me your tired, your poor, your hurled masses. So it's obviously a land of opportunity for immigrants. It's a chance for people to begin a new life.
Yeah.
And the fact that an Italian immigrant comes to America, lives his dream, becomes the chief carver on an American monument is just a great American story. And I think it's a story that needs to be told.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm very honored as his grandson and as a storyteller.
Yeah.
You know, not only am I his grandson, but I get to take whatever skills I have as a storyteller and bring his story to life. So,
And
in
you've
short,
done a great job.
yeah, well, thank you. And I think that we have a lot of great American stories about Italians. Excuse me, I think we have a lot of great American stories about many different ethnic people that have come here. And you know, for me, the elephant in the room is always this great American story about the Italians in this country. Unfortunately, for some people, tends to be the mafia. Okay, fine, that is one story. I'd like this to be another story.
Just the real modest, you know, the 99% of,
Yeah.
of what is, you know,
Yes.
kind of overlooked, and it's really incredible. And like, you know, so he's an incredible stone carver, and he comes to America to work on an American monument, you know, and you mentioned he's very loyal to Italy, but he comes here and he puts his heart and soul and passion into this. How crucial was his work exactly on Mount Rushmore? Because I understand he was a chief carver, and that's a big role. But how important was what he did to this mountain,
Okay.
to this
Well,
monument?
okay. So he is hired as chief carver, and basically the role of the chief carver is in carving the refinement of expression. Basically, the finer features of the faces that bring the faces to life, to give it soul. Okay, and this is something only an artist could do. Everybody needs to know that of the 400 people that worked on Rushmore, most of these men were untrained miners that were unemployed during the Depression. So Borglum brought these guys over and said, I want you to help me carve this mountain. And my grandfather and Borglum basically trained these guys in the art of stone carving on a major scale, which is, you can't even put your brain around it.
No.
So
If you look at the scale, like there's this picture up here.
Yeah.
It's wild. It's very big and
Yeah.
untrained guys.
they were miners. So where they were useful is that they were used to working under adverse conditions, you know. So these guys didn't have a problem with climbing 500 feet in the air, you know, dangling from the nose of Washington in a bosun's seat. They were tough guys, you know.
Real hardened workers, right?
Yeah, so my grandfather trained a lot of these gentlemen to do a lot of the rough carving, but nobody but my grandfather was allowed to go near the eyes, nose, and mouth. And when my grandfather was first hired, the Rapid City office didn't want him, and Borglum, my uncle and I discovered writings about how important my grandfather was, and that, you know, basically because he was the only trained carver, if he left the work,
It would have.
they stopped, and it did. My grandfather experienced harassment from the office of Rapid City. We don't really know why, but they didn't want him, and it might have been because he was an immigrant, he was getting paid more than the other men, we don't know. But basically, Borglum writes, you know, Bianco has left, all the work on the Washington and Jefferson head has stopped. Then, Borglum is so desperate, he goes to the commission of Mount Rushmore and says, we've got to keep Bianco and keep him happy. You pay him $10 a day and I'll pay the rest out of my own pocket, because his ability to understand sculpture is far too important. And then so he basically woos my grandfather to come back, because my grandfather knows that he's needed and he's so honored to do this work that he stays. But he does quit a couple times afterwards, so there's this kind of like back and forth where Bianco quits. Borglum has to convince the commission how important he is, that the work can't be done without him, and then he woos my grandfather back. So,
But he stuck it out, right?
He did.
It's all finished. It's
he
incredible.
did. He
And,
did.
wow. So
So he was really important. There was a crack in Jefferson's lip that threatened the whole face, and Borglum gets my grandfather to come out to Rushmore. He has to go and take out the crack, put in a new piece, and finish it. Nobody could tell the crack was there. and if the crack wasn't fixed, the face would have been lost.
Wow. That would have been not good.
Yeah, and I remember the first time I went to Rushmore, I was with a guided tour, and the tour guide's talking about that lip being repaired, and I was like, that was my grandfather! That was my grandfather! Jumping up and down like a crazy person. And that's when I really started to feel like, this is crazy,
Yeah.
they should know who did this.
Yeah. So, you know, they should know who did this. What have you done to bring the story to the public eye, you know? Like, what's been done to bring this to you know, the community?
Right.
You know, and you know, the country. So, like, I understand there's actually a holiday? A town holiday, right?
Yeah, it's
Or
well,
just
yeah.
a day of remembrance, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
So talk to me about, you know, what you did to kind of bring this story to life and brought it to the attention of the National Parks Organization and to city officials and government officials. And I understand you've actually, you know, spoken to people from different countries about this. You've reached out on a very broad scale. So tell me about that. What it's like to interact with these, you know, different people.
Okay. Well, first of all, in 2009, I created a website. Can I mention the website?
Yeah, go for it.
It's luigimountrushmore.com. It's just one word. And that was the first thing I did to create awareness. And that's what's wonderful about the web. I mean, once it's out there, it's open to the world. And I immediately started hearing from people, particularly Italians. I never knew about this person, this is fantastic, this is a countryman. And from the website became a screenplay that I wrote that I had been shopping for a while, and I'm still shopping, because I think the potential for a movie is a very good one. If I can get the right people to pay attention and to see what a wonderful movie would make. And then my wife and I wrote a book, which is available online. I got many published interviews in Italian magazines. I basically have all of the major Italian organizations like Sons of Italy and Unico behind me, helping me to spread the word about this kind of obscure Italian stone carver. And a journalist named Doug Gladstone really fell in love with my grandfather's story, and he has written a book called The Untold Story of Luigi Del Bianco, and that's a published book. And he has been a major mover and shaker in getting the National Park Service to, you know, pay attention to, you know, the fact that my grandfather needs to be given credit. I also have been in communication with Italy quite a bit.
So you've reached out, you know, not to people in America, but you've reached out to, you know, to different countries.
Oh, absolutely. In fact, I had the honor of going to the Italian consulate in New York City and met the head of education for all of Italy, and to have the opportunity to tell my grandfather's story in hopes that she will take that, and hopefully I'll find myself in Italy telling the story to Italians as well as Americans, because they really, particularly in the part of Italy he comes from, they have really embraced his story. There's a museum that has his story there, and there's an historian named Michele Bertadone who has written and included him in the history of stone carving in that part of Italy. So you have a real connection to the culture of Italy with my grandfather's story.
That's wild. So what has this story done, you know, how do you think this has affected the, you know, not only just the Italian cultures here and in Italy and, you know, wherever, you know, that may be in the world, but also, you know, just all cultures that have heard this story? What kind of message does that give them, do you think?
Well, I think this is a story about perseverance. In fact, when I perform the program for children, that's a major theme of the program, that here's a person who came from a humble beginning, who had a dream, and fulfilled it through perseverance. He came to America, started working very small jobs as a sculptor and as a stone carver, and then was given the honor of carving Lincoln's eyes for $1.50 an hour. And
it's a lot.
And it is a lot. Yeah, the Depression.
Back in the day.
So even though he did encounter many problems and hardships while working at Mount Rushmore, he persevered. And so I think that's the message. It's a message that it's also a message about the great contributions that immigrants make. to our country. And that particularly, I don't want to get into anything political, but I think that he is a great representative of the humble immigrant who comes and contributes to a new home and homeland.
That's really incredible, Lou. Thank you so much for that
Oh, thank
story
you.
and for everything you said. I just have one more question for you.
Sure.
Global Scribes, we're an organization about spreading cultural ideas through the written word, and we have something called the Spark Word each month, which is where we have a word on the website, and you could write a little dialogue about what significance it means to you. And we have people from all around the world write responses, and this month's Spark Word is ink. All right. So what does ink mean to you?
What does ink mean to me?
It's abstract, but
Right.
it's something can be done with it, and I feel like this is actually very good to pertain.
Sure. Well, my earliest experience with ink in my life was when I was 5 years old. I only used pencil because we didn't want children around ink. But my sisters went to Catholic school and they had fountain pens, so ink was this like mysterious, glorious liquid that I wanted to experience. So I used to sneak into my sister's desk and draw with ink, and this wet, fluid blackness going on the white page just, excited me to no end. And I continued my love affair with ink throughout my elementary school years when we could actually start using pens. But when I became a storyteller and I started to write my own stories, and I can show you, I have in my office notebooks filled in ink, not pencil, because I knew ink lasted a lot longer. The personal mythology of my storytelling was born out of ink, writing down the words of stories that mean so much to me. So actually, now that you bring it up, actually ink means much more to me than when you first asked the question, so thank you. It's
No problem. That's the purpose of these words.
Well,
Stimulating and bringing up memories.
yeah, well, you did. You did. In fact, I just thought of that thing about my sisters with ink.
Yeah.
With the fountain pen.
Yeah.
So I hope that answered your question.
Thank you very much for your time. It was great to do this with you.
Oh,
I think,
likewise.
the Global Scribes community and the community in general really enjoy this. And once again, congratulations with all the progress you made.
Thank you,
And good
Giles.
luck with further progress.
Thank you. And
Thank
listen,
you very much.
is he good or what?